So, what's the best, what's the worst of cell phones 2019? Let's discuss. Hey there, friends on YouTube. My name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech, so honest it hurts. This is your first time here. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back again. Let's talk about smartphones for 2019. It's been kind of a good year for smartphones. It's been kind of a strange year. I feel like a lot of the phones have sort of been on roughly the same level. So it's going to be a difficult decision as to like what is better versus what is not better. It'll come down to really some, maybe it's just very personal stuff, but there are some objective things as well that we can discuss. Now, so let's just kind of go in the order of, there was some that I like and then some that I don't, and then the best. How's that? Okay, let's start out with the first phone on the list, the Galaxy S10. The thing I liked about the Galaxy S10, the S10 Plus, I'm kind of counting them both together, is that they were probably the most complete phones of the year in my estimation. They had tons of features. The One UI that Samsung put on top of Android was really pretty well mature by the time they got there. The cameras were good. The in-screen fingerprint reader, but it just generally had the great screen that you always expect from Samsung. It had brilliant design. There were many versions that you could get. You could get ceramic, you could get 5G, you could get all different kinds of stuff. Not to mention the fact that you could also get you had the two sizes, the S10 and the S10 Plus, and you could get the S10e, which had a flat screen, which is something that bothers me about Samsung phones. Generally, they have those curved screens. I don't like the curved screens. And the S10e was of course their sort of budget model. I believe that came in somewhere around $700, $750, and you can get them for a lot cheaper right now. But the S10, S10 Plus, S10e were pleasant surprises for me this year. I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed using the S10 Plus that I had for the time that I had it. And it was really a very, very good all-around phone. Maybe the best all-around phone in the Android space this year, maybe. But we'll talk about that more as we go along. I guess going from the S10, we need to talk about the Note 10. And here's where it gets really difficult. First off, let me say, I don't think that the Note 10 Plus is a bad phone. I don't dislike the Note 10 Plus as a phone. However, there's just something about the Note this year that I just couldn't get behind. I don't know why. I don't know what it was, but the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus, they came out back in, what was it, August? August? Yeah? Something like that? September, maybe? And I was very excited for the Note 10 when we started the year. When the S10 and S10 Plus came out, I was like, if these phones are this good, then the Note 10 is just going to blow them away, because Samsung always the S line is always a good all-around performer. The Note line is sort of like, this is everything that we can do. This is all the features. But instead, Samsung seemed to not really, I don't know. Somewhere in there was the Galaxy Fold, and I've wondered, since the Galaxy Fold had somewhat of a troubled launch, I've wondered if they might have cut back on some things that might have gone into the Note 10 in order to sort of recoup some of the cost of the Samsung Galaxy Fold's initial launch not actually launching. I don't know if there's any truth to that whatsoever. I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm just wondering. So the Note 10, first off, the fact that the Note 10 wasn't really the Note this year. It was like a smaller, just not really as good a version of the Note 10. The real Note 10 this year was the Note 10 Plus. I had that phone for a while. It was a good phone. It was a good phone. The Note series has been my favorite phone since, one of my favorite series of phones ever. I've had the Note 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, and now 10. I've had them all. I've used them all. In 2016, the Note 7 was probably still one of my favorite, if not my favorite, then one of my favorite phones of that year. The Note 8 was my favorite phone of 2017. The Note 9 was my favorite phone of 2018. So here in 2019, you would think that my favorite phone of 2019 would be the Note 10, because what's really different? But I don't know. I still love the S Pen. There was just something about using the phone that didn't blend, it didn't glue together for me. Now, is it a good phone? Yes, it's a good phone. If you want a Note phone, you go out and get the Note 10, you're going to be happy. You're going to be happy as a pig in slop, or whatever you want to, you're going to be really happy. But I was comparing it to the rest of the Note 10s, comparing it to the rest of the Notes, the Notes that have come previously. I didn't feel like it was just as, it was lacking something. You know what it was lacking? It was lacking a headphone jack. Now, that in and of itself is not a big deal. That in and of itself is not that big a deal, because there are a lot of phones that don't have headphone jacks. Although the S10 and S10 Plus, S10e, they all had headphone jacks. They took it away for the Note 10. And the problem that I have with that is that the Note series of phones have always been like for the professional, for the heavy user of the phone. All of the features that you could ever want in a phone are in the Note series, and for some reason they took the headphone jack away. I know it's going to be gone in the S11 and all that kind of stuff, and I know the headphone jack is on the way out in general, but still, something about it just made that's indicative of what made the Note feel like less of a phone to me this year. I don't know.
Our lenses to make sure you're capable of catching every moment. And of course, we didn't forget the selfie camera. Power through your day and night worry-free, because with Warp Charge, you're good to go in 20 minutes. That means your phone is...
Speaking of less of a phone this year, let's just cut to the chase. We'll talk about the Pixel 4 and 4 XL. There were so many things, well, not so many things. The Face ID in the Pixel 4 worked really well. Generally, it was a good phone in the sense that it just it ran well. It had a good screen. They didn't mess up anything hardware-wise. But again, the problem that I had with the Pixel is that in a year where there was battery goodness everywhere, almost every phone that came out this year improved in the battery department. The Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL just didn't improve. They actually had smaller batteries, and when I was using the Pixel 4, I couldn't get through more than like 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'd be down at 20%, and the battery anxiety would come in, and I'd feel like, well, now I have to charge it. So that, especially coming from the iPhone 11 Pro, that was really, really worrisome to me. It's just something about the Pixel that Google has never quite gotten it right. If Google ever gets the Pixel right, then it will be a great phone, and it may challenge the big boys for being one of the best phones of the year. The camera, still good, all that kind of thing, but overall, the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 4 XL left me wanting, and part of that was not only the battery life and but also the pricing of the Pixel and the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 4 XL. $800 and $900 for 64 gigabytes of storage, which is less than you're getting with any other Android phone. For a phone that has less battery life, for a phone that has arguably fewer features, you're paying nearly the same price as you would for an S10, S10 Plus, Note 10. So it just didn't seem like good value to me. The Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL were ultimately very mediocre phones for the prices that they were being sold for. Now, over Black Friday, they were selling for $599 and $699, I believe. That's a little bit more in line with what I think the Pixel is worth, but for some reason, Google can't get there. I don't know exactly what it is about Google. They can't get the phone thing right. They can't get the phone thing right, although they're getting a little bit closer every year. A little bit, at least this year, the screens are good. The operating system worked well, all that kind of stuff. The radar thing was cool. And their Face ID was really impressive. So I hand it to them for the improvements that they made, but it's just like they made those improvements and then almost like they just decided to shoot themselves in the foot by making the batteries too small. I don't get it. Anyway, you're just not getting the value for the money by buying the Pixel 4 or the Pixel 4 XL. Now, I'm going to transition to I'm going to talk about another phone that was a good phone that a lot of people liked that I didn't particularly care for, and that is the OnePlus 7 Pro. The OnePlus 7 Pro, 90 hertz refresh rate on the screen. The Pixel had that too, but it never worked except when you're at 75% brightness. I'm never at 75% brightness. So anyway, 90 hertz screen, just pop-up camera, screen looked beautiful, good phone, and less expensive, but still kind of expensive. OnePlus has slowly been creeping up. The prices have slowly been creeping up. And all year, when I did my review of the OnePlus 7 Pro, I called it the butt phone. And I called it the butt phone specifically because there were a lot of great features on that phone. That phone was a good phone all around, but it offered super fast charging, but no wireless charging. It had a great screen and the 90 hertz refresh rate, but at least in my use, the battery life, I don't remember that being so great. It just was sort of a phone that was halfway to a flagship and halfway to a mid-range phone, somewhere in between. Many people this year loved the OnePlus 7 Pro. But I just wasn't one of them. Ultimately, it didn't sit well with me, and so that's just how it is. That's the OnePlus 7 Pro is not one of my favorites, and I realize now that I have said mostly negative things about all the phones that I've talked about up to this point, and this is the point where that's going to stop. And I'm going to start talking more positively, okay? So the first phone that I want to talk about in a positive light, the phone that I feel like Google got right, as opposed to what they did with the Pixel 4 and 4 XL, is the Pixel 3a and 3a XL. Those were kind of surprise phones, at least to me. I didn't see them coming. They're mid-range phones. They were very well priced in the mid-range, even though they were made out of a sort of a polycarbonate plastic kind of thing. They still felt really good in the hand. The screens were still pretty good. They just worked really well. The fact that you had the vanilla stock Android with just a few things that Google throws in special, it worked really well with the mid-tier chip that they put in there. And I honestly could take the Google Pixel 3a or 3a XL. The 3a XL would be more what I'd prefer. I could see myself using that phone as an everyday phone and not really missing anything. In fact, for some reason, after taking the headphone jack away on their more expensive phones, they put the headphone jack back into the Pixel 3a and 3a XL. The reasoning for that being that folks who buy phones in that price range are maybe a little bit more price conscious and can't necessarily afford the wireless headphones, and so they still have the wired headphones. I don't know. It's a good thought. I was glad to see the headphone jack. The 3A, 3A XL were probably my fourth favorite phone of the year. Fourth favorite phone. And that brings us to really probably the top couple phones. It depends on how you want to look at one. The iPhone 11. Whereas the Pixel 3a and 3a XL were probably the best value for money phones, there's something about the iPhone 11 that Apple did this year that was really, really special. Well, not special, but interesting to me. Last year, I was very upset that the iPhone XR was $750, and it felt like it should be less than that. And it just felt like Apple was charging too much for too little when it came to the XR. Now, the XR turned out to be a very, very good phone, and I had one all year, and I really, really enjoyed it. There was nothing wrong with that phone whatsoever, but still, I felt like the $750 price tag was not quite right. This year, somehow, now, I wasn't a big fan of the colors that Apple chose this year. They went more pastel, and I'm not really a pastel guy. I don't know if you can tell by the way that not really a pastel guy. So a lot of the colors didn't appeal to me the way that the XR colors appealed to me. But what did appeal to me was the price. They dropped the price of the iPhone 11 by $50. And you might think, well, that's just $50. But imagine that $50 compounded over however many thousands and thousands and thousands of phones that they will sell. They are taking a loss compared to what they would have made otherwise. But I think they're trying to position that phone in that sort of high middle range market as they now have positioned the iPhone 11 with its sort of somewhat dumbed down specs, the screen not quite as good, all that kind of stuff. They've positioned that as the iPhone as opposed to like a budget iPhone, which is what the iPhone XR felt like in 2018. So the iPhone 11 is now really the iPhone, and it starts at $700. That's great, and they kept the XR around. The XR is $599. So they Apple did some crazy things this year. They actually had more value for money in almost everything that they released this year. The AirPods Pro are at least worth what they're priced competitively, et cetera. But in terms of the phones, Apple decided that they were going to put a phone in a price range where it would sell well and do well for them, and they wouldn't charge the Apple tax. Let's get back around to, it's really hard for me to choose one phone as the best phone of the year, so I'm going to talk about the two phones that I liked the most this year, the two phones that I ended up keeping, and all the rest I moved on so that I could free up the capital to continue to do this. The first phone that I'm going to talk about here is the iPhone 11 Pro. I ended up going with the 11 Pro. I did get an 11 Pro, and I got an 11 Pro Max. I like the 11 Pro size better. I felt that way about the 10S last year as well. Sometimes I miss the bigger screen, but there's something about the iPhone 11 Pro, this 5.8-inch screen size. It fits in the hand. I can still get to almost everything that I need to get to on the screen. It's not too heavy. It's not too thick. It's not too big. And it just really feels like the right size for a phone. Now, the things that Apple did to make this phone better this year, the things that Apple did to make the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max probably the best phones of the year, in my opinion. They took what was already a really good phone experience. iPhones are iPhones for a reason. And they sort of addressed a few things that maybe hadn't been addressed as much as they should be. And so the battery life on this phone is crazy. Whereas the Pixel 4 and 4 XL, their batteries got smaller. These batteries got larger. You had to sacrifice 3D Touch in order to get a little bit more space for a little bit more battery. But the battery on this, I've been using this since it launched, and so it's been a few months now, and I get 2 days worth of battery out of it. It's been, as new versions of the software have released, the battery's been a little up and down, but I'm still getting 2 days out of this phone. The screen, amazing. The camera, as much as I hated on this camera bump, and as much as I still think like, well, that's a little extreme, now that it's becoming the norm, it doesn't look awful the way that it looked awful before it was the norm. Now that it's become the norm, it doesn't look as awful. But what they did with the cameras in terms of the photo, the video, the overall quality bumps that they put together, the cameras are going to continue to improve as the year goes on. Now they've got like the deep fusion stuff that they're doing with cameras. Apple has really pushed their cameras forward to a place where I would say that the iPhone cameras are on par with the best of the Android phone cameras, and in some ways probably better, especially in video. iPhone has always been better at video, and now with these new lenses and everything else and the new software, I think that the iPhone is probably the best camera out there. Of course, it's totally subjective. You might like one kind of processing of a picture versus another, and I might like mine differently. I tend to like more of a balanced, sort of less punchy color, whereas you might feel differently. But what they were able to do with this phone this year was surprising in all the good ways. Usually in years past, this was the thing. Like, I spent the past couple of years being like hating on Apple all the time, being really upset with Apple because of the things that they were doing. Like I said, with the iPhone XR and all that kind of stuff, I spent a long time just really being angry at Apple. But this year, they stopped making me mad. They started doing things like lowering the price of the iPhone 11. They made the battery life in this phone the best battery life I've ever had on any phone. And the Pro Max is even better than this. They made the cameras so much better. And overall, they seem to become more consumer friendly. So the best thing that I can say about a phone is that after I've used it for a little while, I cease to think about what phone I'm using or how I'm using it. It just becomes that extension of myself. And the iPhone 11 Pro this year has been the phone that has most sort of just integrated itself into my life, integrated itself into what I do, and helped me out through my daily life more than any other phone. But it's not the only phone that I want to talk about here in this top echelon of phones tier. I also want to talk about this phone. This phone is the LG V50 ThinQ. It was only available, I believe, on Verizon and Sprint maybe this year. This is the 5G version. It doesn't matter that it's 5G. I don't care about that because I'm not going to have 5G service for a while. The LG V50, LG's phones in general, like LG can't seem to catch a break. They make a really good phone, and they can't sell them. They can't do advertising for their phones. For some reason, they've never been able to get these phones in front of people, get people to consider these phones. Although the LG V10 was an amazing phone, it was unique looking, it had unique features, it was really great. The V20, the same, the V30, the V40, they were all really great phones, but LG could not sell them. And the same goes for the G line. The G5 was not a good phone, and I think that's where LG's momentum started to go down. We had boot loop issues, but this phone has a 2-year warranty because LG wanted to make sure that people felt good about it. But it's also just the way that it feels in the hand, the way that it's somewhat lighter than other phones. The screen is still beautiful. The build quality is still solid, although I've dropped mine and cracked it in a couple of places. Still has the fingerprint reader on the rear, which a lot of people like, but it also has facial recognition and all the other things. The facial recognition's a little slow, but I don't use that predominantly. I still use the on the back fingerprint reader. It has a programmable button here. This is really supposed to be a Google Assistant button, but you can use it for different things. It's got its power on the right hand side, up down. LG's skin, the version of LG's software that they put over top of Android is not good. It's not good when compared to the Pixel. It's not good when compared to the OnePlus phones. It's not good when compared to even One UI from Samsung. And Samsung has, just recently drug themselves out of the basement in that category. The LG skin is just basic. It's just very basic. It's not designed very well. It's not very pleasing to the eye. It's not very easy to get around. They offer some interesting features, like when the V series was first put out, they had a second screen up here at the top. They still have that second screen thing going on, but it's just like a software button on the side. It's very similar to the Edge screen that Samsung now has, but it's one of the things that they do in their software that I think is very interesting and that has differentiated that software from most others. But on daily usage, it's just not a real pleasant experience. So this LG V50 is my favorite Android phone of the year. I like the build, I like the size, I like the snappiness of it, I like the features that it has. Not only is it a great audio phone, as most people know, it has the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack that's connected to a quad DAC that gives you much better audio fidelity than any other phone that you can get right now, or any other phone. The G series phones from LG also have the quad DAC this year, but yes, it has that. Yes, that's important to me, and that's a big reason why I like this phone. But it's not only that. The cameras in here, the features that the cameras have in terms of manual mode and the recording features that are in here, this phone is made with creative people in mind, and it just feels right to me. It just feels right to me. But the only caveat is I put Nova Launcher on it. And that's what I use. I can still get the little like, this thingy. I can still get the secondary screen thing, but I have to use Nova Launcher. So I can't say that this is the best phone of the year because the operating system that they put on here over top of Android is just not up to the same level as everybody else. But this is my favorite Android phone of the year, the phone that I decided to keep and I have still been enjoying now months after it's been released, the LG V50. I wish more people would have given this phone a chance, or I wish LG would have marketed it in such a way that it had more of a chance. It's a very, very solid phone. It does everything well. It does some things incredibly well, falls down in the software department. And as many people will tell you, the upgrade cycle for the operating system and that kind of thing is not the best with LG. They don't upgrade on a really regular basis. And Android phones are always still very, very slow in doing that anyway. But if I were to carry one phone this year, it would be really difficult for me to decide between these two. It would be really difficult for me to decide between the LG V50 and the iPhone 11 Pro. I probably would end up going with the iPhone only because of how much I'm integrated into the Apple ecosystem. But this thing is super compelling, and I don't know. It would be a really tough choice. If I could only have one phone this year, it would be between these two. So that's my best of, worst of 2019 smartphone edition, blah, blah, blah. I've been talking forever. I have no idea how long this has been going on. But I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that you've had some things to think about. I hope that you have some comments for me down in the comments below. Let's talk about your favorite phones of 2019. What was your favorite phone? What was your least favorite phone? Let me know down in the comments, and we will have a boisterous discussion. Once again, If this was your first time here and you want to come on back again, I encourage you to do so. Like, bell notify, subscribe, do all those kinds of things, and come back and see me again sometime soon. And if you've been here before, thank you ever so much for coming back again. Now, we've got a join button down there if you want to become more involved in the channel, get some special perks as a member. And we also have brand new merchandise that is available. And it's the holiday season. Maybe you want to give yourself a gift or a loved one or someone that you hate. Maybe you want to give them a gift. We've got coffee mugs and phone cases and t-shirts. So check those out at the link down in the description below as well. Once again, to recap, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts. Until next time, I'm out.